I'm going to bring in my fellow colleague meteorologist David Neal, because here across the southeast there's a void, nothing going on there, and the heat is just building here in the Panhandle.
Big time heat dome that has set up, and the ring of fire back to the west that we look at, but right underneath it's a suppression of clouds, and the air is actually being driven downward. And you know, that's a heating effect that takes place. Put air in a tire and it's going to heat up like that. But we want to bring in the authorities here out of the National Weather Service in Tallahassee, Florida, on the campus of Florida State University, which ironically the gator is not the logo of the Florida State Seminoles, but the gentleman who is joining us now has more information on what is going on. Donald Harrigan, lead forecaster there in Tallahassee. Donald, you and I were just talking about this is an area here where you guys ramped up the alert to a heat advisory alert there for several different reasons, and I find them all interesting. They're into the Panhandle of Florida, just south of I-10, that goes all the way down to Apalachicola or westward toward Panama City. A couple of reasons you and I were just talking about, some pretty scientific here. Let's explain why this was an area that you progged a little bit higher.
Sure. We'll start out with why we typically issue these advisories, and it's typically for heat indices above 108 degrees. And we're not seeing that today. It's actually very dry out there, as you mentioned, and so we're seeing the actual temperatures nearing 100 degrees. And this was an area that was devastated by Hurricane Michael, and so there was a loss of vegetation, and also many people lost their homes and have some weakened infrastructure in the region. And so when we're looking at satellite and observational data, we're seeing that in this region, it's heating up a lot faster because there's a lack of trees. And so you're having longer durations of hot temperatures, maybe even hotter than most people are used to this time of year. And then if people have been displaced from their home, which we do have reports of people being displaced and homeless, whether or not they're in a facility with air conditioning and is up in the air and kind of in question. So we wanted to raise awareness that the temperatures are going to be really hot, not just in the afternoons, but also staying up overnight. And so extra precautions may be needed, as the conditions may not be what you're used to. At least your accommodations may not be what they're used to in these temperatures.
Yeah, so you mentioned vegetation. I think that's something that goes over a lot of our heads sometimes, is that we count on that a lot of times to help us out with the amount of heat that the Earth absorbs, whether by direct rays of the sun or by reflection. And there is a term, we call it albedo, that has to do with reflection. And now, without vegetation, the color's a little darker, so we do a little bit more absorption. Is that true?
Yeah, we do. We're able to absorb more of that heat, but in turn, at night, we're able to radiate maybe a little bit more efficiently out of there. So while in some of the areas we're seeing some higher overnight temperatures than usual, it is possible that there will be a little bit of relief in the overnight hours in the areas that we've highlighted. But yeah, as you said, the lack of the vegetation is really allowing the solar energy to be absorbed in this area and heat things up faster.
All right, good information there. Thank you so much for that. You guys do what you can to stay cool there, and let us know if there's anything we can pass along information-wise to the public about what they can do as well. We always talk about malls and that kind of thing. If you don't have air conditioning, we'll go somewhere that does. But thank you again for that information. Lead forecaster there at the National Weather Service office in Tallahassee, Florida.